We also assume the greatest risk to serve and protect every day. The demands of this job are many, and officers work to balance all that comes with it. And they do so amid full lives with their families and the commitments and the joys and the sorrows. Police officers are human. I'll say that one more time. Police officers are human. And they have struggles, just like everyone else. To help our officers through challenging times, Chicago Police Department maintains dedicated resources and programming. We are committed to officer wellness and well-being. For faith-based counseling service, the chaplains ministry provides direct support. Our police chaplains represent a diverse cultural background and faith traditions. Our EAP, also known as our Employee Assistance Program, or our Peer Support Professional Counseling Division, is a unit that provides free, confidential programs for all active and retired department members and their families. EAP emergency assistance is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have licensed licensed clinical therapists on staff, as well as sworn police officers who serve as peer support leaders and alcohol and substance use disorder counselors. We understand how delicate situations are when someone is in crisis and wants to reach out. That's why EAP services are located in a standalone building outside of police headquarters in the downtown area with plenty of available parking to maintain privacy and confidentiality. The department currently has an additional temporary EAP services location on the south side and working to establish a third location, a permanent location, on the north side. Once finalized, each of these locations will house 8 clinicians, 1 substance and alcohol use counselor, and 1 peer support leader. Every police officer makes the Chicago Police Department what it is, every one of them. And we'll keep working to make sure every officer has the support they need. Please, please, everyone, keep our police department, the men and women of this department who sacrifice everything, in your prayers. And say thank you to each of them every chance you get. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Sobo, who will speak, and then turn it over to Father Brandt, and then I'll come back just for a few questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. I'm Dr. Rob Sobo, and I am the director of the Professional Counseling Division, EAP. The loss of life by suicide is truly an unspeakable tragedy. And we keep those that we have lost in our thoughts, their family members, and all of us who are affected by that loss. And we keep those who continue to serve, the men and women who are out there every day putting their lives out on the line to keep our communities safe and well. As you may know, in Cook County and the city of Chicago, the suicide rate is at an alarmingly high number. In fact, some of the largest numbers since we've recorded them. Our police officers are part of that society. Not only do they experience what most of us do on a daily basis, but on top of that, they experience unspeakable levels of stress, trauma, and emotional and physical fatigue, the likes of which most of us will not know. In order to help them not only survive but thrive in this career, we have some of the most comprehensive mental health and officer wellness programs available in the nation. Currently, we have a clinical program, a trauma program, a drug and alcohol usage service, a peer support program, and of course, our chaplains unit. Right now, utilization of our programs are the highest they have been, which is an indicator of how difficult things are out there, but the trust in our services. We provide services to more sworn and department members than just about any other law enforcement EAP in the nation. Our clinical services are available to all of our department members, family members, and retired personnel as well. That can be any issue that they are experiencing personally or professionally. Our trauma program, which is probably the most comprehensive in the nation, looks to assure that officers, when they experience any incident on or off the job that may be traumatic in the line of duty, that they receive a trauma debriefing before they return to duty. And the extraordinary aspect about our trauma program is that we actually have the ability to hold our officers through debriefings to treat any symptoms of trauma or PTSD as long as it is necessary for them to regain a sense of well-being. Our peer support program is made up of approximately 200 sworn volunteer members who give their time, their resources, and their expertise to others in time of need. They come from all backgrounds, all walks of life and experiences, and share that to others to help them in difficult times. And our chaplains unit speak for themselves, and I will let Father Brandt talk to you about that. Currently, we have 11 licensed clinicians. We have one starting this Friday and 2 more starting August 1st. Our goal is to have 1 clinician per district so that every district has a clinician that is part of their own culture, that isn't just a face out there that they know they can reach out to, but is a familiar person, a trusted person, someone they know that they can go to, because we want to assure that the barriers to receiving services are taken away with trust, familiarity, and having someone that they can count on and that they know available to them. Our drug and alcohol counselors are currently 6 sworn members who are state certified drug and alcohol counselors, and they provide drug and alcohol usage services to all department members as well. We are available 24/7, 365 days a week, as the superintendent indicated. The goal here is we have the expertise, we have the programs. The utilization of our programs proves that our work is successful. But we need to do more as a culture and a department by making every individual responsible for well-being. By being a team, we can hopefully identify, encourage, and get our members to understand that talking and the processing of emotion is courageous, it's responsible, and it is a duty of the job, because together we can succeed in taking down the numbers of suicide with a team approach. I thank you very much for your time, your thoughts, and I once again ask you to keep those who serve every day in your mind as they go out there for all of our well-being. Thank you. And with that, Father Brandt, please.
Father Dan Brandt, Directing Chaplain. I stand side by side with my colleagues, Rabbi Moshe Wolf, Chaplain Kimberly Lewis Davis, Chaplain Bob Montalongo, Chaplain Husni Selenica, and Chaplain Joe Jackson. We, like EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, are available to our membership 24/7 and are often called out at different hours of the day and night. We also make ourselves present, of course, at roll calls and making hospital visits, and of course, sadly, in recent days, even at the morgue. We today are here to remind our brothers and sisters who happen to be watching or reading this. We beg that you not only keep our officers in your thoughts and prayers, those whom we have lost, and the 595 who have gone before us, who have died in the line of duty. We pray that those who give their lives to the service of this great city and in service to all of us who call this great city home in our thoughts, minds, and keep them gratefully in our hearts, of course. We in the chaplains unit, perhaps our biggest job is to remind our officers as often as we can that they are doing God's work, and truly that is the case. This city would be in big trouble if it weren't for our men and women who bravely put on that uniform and go out and serve. So thanks be to God for each and every one of them, and doubling or piggybacking on what was said before me, a simple thank you. A gesture like this, when you see our officers out there doing their job, that goes a long, long way. God bless you.
I'll take just a few questions, and we'll do the mic again, so we'll pass the mic so that we can have a little bit of an order in your questions and answers.
Hi, Superintendent. I spoke to Alexa James from NAMI. She had some really sharp criticism about the canceled days off. What's being done to make sure that this isn't such a necessity for the department, that folks do have time with their families, that they do have a break from the trauma, from the stress, from everything they deal with every day?
One of the things that we've emphasized, obviously, is the programming. I think the people here today and the words that they've shared, I hope finds room in your article today. I think that's really important, the awareness. Regarding canceled days off, a couple of points I'd like to make. One being we cancel days off because of the need to make sure our officers are safe on the street. Particularly between Memorial Day and Labor Day, there's 4 weekends that are associated with the holidays. Memorial Day weekend, there's Father's Day weekend, then there's 4th of July weekend, and then Labor Day weekend are historically the most violent weekends of the year in the city. And we just asked the question of ourselves as leaders, when it's particularly violent historically, and we know that based on data, for all of the leadership's careers for the last 30, 40 years, superintendents have made the same decisions I've made regarding, would you rather have fewer cops on the street or more cops on the street when that cop in that dark alley is calling for help and no one's there to come because you don't have enough cops on the street? That's one aspect of this decision that is particularly violent. Now, to be the police, we are continuing to be at historical highs of officers being shot at or shot. So that question, I think, is point number one. Would you rather have more cops on the street when you're calling for that 10-1, which is an officer calling for assistance? When an officer is being shot at, would you rather have someone coming to help that officer or no one coming because you don't have enough officers on the street? That's point number one. Point number two, we need to do a better job at making sure our officers are aware of the services that are there for them. We are at a pretty high point of officers utilizing our services, but we have to do much more. And the canceled days off, just to add some context to that as well, between Memorial Day and Labor Day, we do cancel 8 of the 104 regular days off that officers have every year. 8 of the 104 regular days off that officers have every year. Besides Memorial Day to Labor Day, in addition to that 8, we rotate one of their days off council between 3 and 5 weeks at a time. That adds up to about 12 additional days throughout the year. So 20 regular days off are canceled on average, some officers less, of the 104 days off that officers have in a year. We never cancel their vacations or their personal leaves. So we don't cancel the 25 days officers get every year for vacation. We never cancel the other personal leave that officers have because of what you've all heard today. It is so important that our officers take their leave, take their vacations. But we do, between Memorial Day and Labor Day, cancel 8 of the 104 regular days off they have, but we don't cancel the 25 vacation days or the other leaves that they have that average between 160 and 180 days, depending on the seniority of the member, as you know. So 20 of the days that they have are canceled. They have been canceled going back, I don't know how long you've been on this beat, Tom, but it's probably as long as you've been covering this beat. The tough decision between Memorial Day and Labor Day is about officer safety in that dark alley on evening shift. Would you rather have officers coming to help you when you're being shot at, or not enough officers at work and no one coming to help you? That's the really tough decision that superintendents have made for the last 30 years. And they all have made similar decisions that I'm making. Not an easy decision, but when you're being shot at or shot at record high levels, I believe it's the right decision to have more cops rather than less cops. Any other questions?
Superintendent,
Yes.
My name is Christian. I'm with ABC. I think there's a disconnect between the general public and first responders with the sorts of traumas that your officers are responding to on a daily basis. You mentioned these trauma debriefings and how many officers are currently utilizing those services. For those who are perhaps unaware of what these resources are, break down for us the types of conversations or what officers are able to discuss if they've been through some sort of traumatic experience.
I'm going to defer to the professionals, but I will say before I turn it over to Dr. Sobo to answer this question is the stigma associated with even talking to someone in our profession is a challenge. That many officers feel it's a sign of weakness to even talk to a professional or a peer about what they're challenged with. And so just this press conference helps with that stigma. But I will defer to Dr. Sobo on any further comment on this question. Doc.
So one thing I encourage you to look up the general order that covers our TISMP program so that you may have it as a reference and understand it more in depth. What it does is it discusses that our officers must have a mandatory debriefing after a traumatic incident to make sure that they don't carry the seeds of trauma that can take down well-being before they return back to duty. We understand that as our officers put their lives on the line and their well-being, and that of their families as well, that they deserve to have treatment for the experiences that they go through. As I mentioned previously, when we discover that an officer is traumatized, we are able to keep them off duty and through debriefings until they recover and are in a better place that they were, and actually better than they were before, because part of trauma debriefings is not only to process the trauma, but to learn coping mechanisms, and that, at the first sign of stress, that there are things that you can and should do to bring yourself back to a better place. Does that answer your question, sir? Okay, good. Sure.
Any other questions?
Yes, Roseanne Teas, Fox 32. I'm wondering if, looking at the suicides that have occurred, if there are any common behaviors displayed by these particular officers when you look back that maybe were signs. And then the second part of that is you talk about trauma screenings after a traumatic event. Are there any kind of screenings or just the cumulative impact of your daily job? So there was no traumatic event, but maybe there are officers experiencing some, difficulties, mental health difficulties. Is there any other screening?
All right. So signs, whether there were some behavior things, without talking about these cases specifically, because we want to really protect the families and make sure. So canceled days off is not a common theme. The last suicide hadn't had their days off canceled at all because of their duty status. So not at all for the last 2.5 years. So that's not a common thing. I know that's a narrative, but that's just not something I would point to as a common theme. I would argue that there likely are the same issues that pervasive throughout the profession. This is not a new thing in the profession, obviously, sadly so. The military suffers similarly, as well as I think the healthcare profession is starting to experience this similar stress, trauma, because of the demands of the job. And I'll just turn over, again, I'd just like to lean toward the professionals for specifics from a high level, not specific cases. Doc?
So all of our FTOs, our sergeants, our captains, our lieutenants, our commanders, and even the superintendent himself are trained on signs and symptoms of distress, anxiety, depression, anything that has to do with, loss of well-being. And what we train is that it is our obligation and responsibility to look out for those officers, and if we are concerned about them, make sure that they get to the resources that are available. So we are available immediately for any officer that is in a crisis or that there may be some concern about. And our supervisors have the ability to bring them down for immediate support or intervention, whatever it may be needed for them.
Sandra Torres with NBC5. We spoke with the family of Officer Swink, the brother, and he's now getting very involved and speaking out. I understand he's going to be part of a press conference in just a couple of days with some aldermen who are calling for more action as the suicides continue to happen. He says the family believes there's resources available. There's no denying that. But that how can they use that if there's no time for them to take advantage of those resources? What do you say to the family of Officer Swink?
I've answered that question already.
I understand.
You want me to answer? I'll sum it up if you don't mind.
I understand what you said.
Okay.
I know you said that there's decisions made in order to protect officers. I understand that. But for them, that is not enough because of what happened to them. What can you say to them personally?
So again, I don't generally comment on what you're saying, what they said to me. I generally don't comment on that. I don't know if you're recounting what they said accurately or not. I answered the question, but I'll sum it up again. There's two aspects of this issue of the demands of the job. The first aspect is officer safety, physical safety, where during the most violent times of the year, we want enough cops on the street to protect other cops. So when you're being shot at or shot at record highs, we don't want you calling for assistance when there's not enough cops to come help you. That's point number one. I think the second point we're making is of the days off that you do have, we cancel 20 of the 104 days off. Just to add context, we never cancel furlough days. Officers get between 20 and 25 furlough days a year, as well as several more days of other personal leave. that really adds up to between 160 and 180 days a year. We never cancel any of that other personal leave, the comp time leave that they have, the baby furloughs or the baby vacation leave that they have, and the other personal leave that officers have. And between Memorial Day and Labor Day, which is increasingly violent, we cancel 8 of those days. Between those two, those are the most challenging because not only are they the most violent, it's compressed within a short time frame. So I hope that sums up what I said before. But that's my best response. Point by point on what you said, they said, I stopped doing that in junior high school. You got next question?
I'm just passing along the message.
We got you. Next question, unless you got another one. Okay.
For Dr. Sobo, my name is Jesse Echeverria with Univision Chicago. You mentioned that within Cook County, you have seen suicide figures at its highest levels compared to recent years, that this is not just an issue within CPD. Could you be more specific about those figures, percentages within Chicago or Cook County?
I don't have those exact numbers memorized, but if you look at the numbers, they're extraordinarily high. And over the past 10 years in the United States on a whole, suicide has increased. And over the past couple of years, with all of the issues going on in society, drug and alcohol has gone through the roof. Overdoses have gone up 35%, domestics and suicides alike. So our membership, of course, lives in society and experiences all of the same stressors, but on top of it, they have unique, extraordinary stressors that are, quite frankly, things that, most of us don't have to experience and try and cope with. And that's why we have the services available that we do currently.
Anyone else? Oh, yeah, one more.
Superintendent Dr. Sobo, how many of these officers who have taken their own lives this year have availed themselves of the EAP? And what kind of oversight is there of the EAP within the department and the city structure to make sure that it's actually effective for those officers? And the officers seeking out, are they actually getting the help that they need, or are they being turned away or sometimes ignored by clinicians leaving without telling them that they're going to be leaving?
I don't know if we can talk specific cases. I think we can give an overview of the services utilization, maybe. Doc, I don't know if you can give just an overview.
So again, we do have very high utilization. In fact, the highest utilization of a mental health and officer wellness facility connected to law enforcement in the nation. Our retention of professionals right now is pretty good. We have not had a clinician leave since taking the job. I myself have been here for 23 years. Our officers that are assigned to our unit have been there for varying years, depending on when they took their respective positions. And we do not turn away officers who are in need, except when they are experiencing some symptoms that may be more appropriate for a different type of facility, whether it be an IOP, an intensive outpatient program, or some sort of inpatient drug and alcohol or psychiatric facility, or just if they need something that is not really appropriately addressed within EAP and needs a specialized care program. That is part of our responsibility as well, is we look for resources that we vet that guarantee that our officers are getting the best services that we can find out there and that are available.
Superintendent, is there any oversight within the department to make sure that EAP is doing what it needs to be doing?
There is, and we're actually in the process of hiring a chief medical officer as part of additional oversight and managing as we expand more and more programming, I think, again, just to speak to the oversight issue.
I just think that, having 3 suicides in the department within the last couple of weeks, the 3rd largest department in the United States for local municipal, much higher than New York or LA right now. Is there something special or different about Chicago where we're seeing these officers take their lives here as opposed to those other departments facing similar societal issues?
I hadn't seen the numbers for LA or New York. I don't know that that's as accurate as more, but I would defer. If you've seen the numbers, I won't argue because I hadn't seen the numbers recently. I would just say, obviously, Chicago recognized that we needed more programming, and the mayor added more funding for programming and clinicians. So just 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, when the mayor walked into office, there were 3 clinicians, I believe, 3. The mayor identified this as an issue. There is now funding for 22 clinicians. And we're in the process of hiring that full amount. But in addition to that, I think the peer support is second to none in the country. The numbers, as well as the commitment, their volunteers, the dedication they have to their members, along with, and I'll just pat Dr. Sobo on the back, I would put Dr. Sobo up against any director in the country. Because what he's done with both limited resources and now newfound resources is just extraordinary in the way he's helped and saved untold lives. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Can you just clarify?
Whatever question you have, we can get with you offline, okay? We'll definitely answer every question, but we'll get with you offline. Thank you very much.